We went up to Boston, we sat down with the reporters, and we both became very quickly, I think, pretty engrossed in the subject matter. And at some point, it just became obvious, like, well, we should just write this together, which was thrilling for me. Tom had this commitment to verisimilitude, to getting the story right. And he made us not only, talk to the reporters more than 2 or 3 times. I think we took 6, 7 trips up to Boston. Beyond that, we reached out beyond the reporters. We talked to reporters who had been involved with some of the earlier investigations with the Porter case at the Globe. We talked to lawyers who the reporters used as sources. We talked to the lawyers that the Globe used in pursuing their legal case. We talked to a number of survivors, Phil Saviano and Joe Crowley, and those conversations, I think, really made the movie come alive.
We found quickly in our collaboration mirrored the reporters' collaboration and their process. And there was something very useful about us kind of investigating this both individually and collectively and kind of constantly banging ideas and thoughts off each other, just like any collaboration. But there was something about it that felt very parallel to the work the reporters did. And I think it was really exciting for us. I think those are the moments as a writer where you do feel a little bit crazy because it's you in a dark room with a script and there's not much else to it. And you think, is this ever going to see the light of day? But I think the thing that really buoyed us through that was just the importance of the work, the importance of the research and investigation by our heroes who were the reporters. It's rare that you get to work on material that you genuinely believe has social relevance, not to mention importance. And so I feel like we were really motivated by that. One of the reasons I'm most excited, I just think it's a great story. And it has so many great characters, and we're fortunate enough to get so many terrific actors to portray those characters. So it just has this sort of duality of being something that feels both important and something that just feels highly entertaining.
Yeah, I would say to the fun, like, so when we were, doing the research and we'd come upon a new tidbit, right? Something we hadn't covered before.
Yeah.
Right. It would, to me, it was my favorite thing was like calling Tom, was like, you're never gonna believe this, right? You're never gonna believe this thing that, or he'd call me and say, Robbie said this funny thing to me. When we started piecing that together, that process uh, was just, unbelievably fun.
Yeah, and I think Josh hit on something which is true, which is interviewing reporters is a nightmare.
Totally.
It's like
Totally.
it's like trying to heal a doctor. Like reporters just don't want to be interviewed. They like asking the questions, and we had to ask some tough questions. And you could tell we walked out of a lot of interviews like, well, we're going to have to go back because they didn't give us what we needed. We really, I think, got a sense of what the reporters had to cope with when putting the story together. And, credit to them for doing it and doing it so professionally and so beautifully.
Sasha talked to us early on about how heartbreaking it was to see victims, survivors who just were struggling so much when they seemed to be such lovely people on the inside, and yet were having such difficult struggling. It also gave us a greater understanding of the reporters and what they'd gone through, and greater empathy and greater, being even more impressed with how they had managed to go on through all
Yeah,
this.
and maybe even more motivated to tell the story and to get it right. That we felt like, okay, there's such a human stake here. There's such a human value on this story that you don't always come across when you're telling stories. The one uh, trait that all these reporters share is they're incredibly curious people. They're just incredibly curious. You sit with them and they just take an interest in what you're saying and question, and they eventually draw out these stories. And I think that was our job, to sort of share that sense of curiosity, that sense of discovery with our audience. And there's something really compelling about that. It's probably one of the most unique things about our movie. You don't see many movies like that anymore, where they really, and it says something about the generosity and the spirit of the actors who so willingly jumped in and participated in that way, because you need actors who get that for it to work. But I think that's something Josh and I were constantly, we felt like when we talked about Spotlight, it wasn't one or two people, it was this unit.
This truly required collaboration, and again, he's been at this for a little longer than I have, and it was a huge education beyond all that. So
For both of us, I think this one was an educational project. It just was, taking our lead from the reporters and their great work. It was certainly a challenge, but it was a sort of a very joyful one, even though the subject matter was so dark. But the exploration and the courage of these reporters to tell their story, and the participation of the survivors and the families of victims to share their stories, was something incredibly cathartic about it, and incredibly hopeful about it. And I think it was something that drove us right through the whole process, even through the dark days when we didn't think this movie was going to see the light of day. We were inspired by their great work.